Hey geeks and gamers. You know, whenever I first got my Atari VCS back in 2022, the first thing I did, I got it on Christmas, and I had like a handful of games I knew I wanted to get. Games like Atari 50, Atari Mania, Gauntlet 2, and there were a few others. One of the games that I got day one that I knew I needed to pick up because I had watched stuff about the VCS and had some good recommendations, you know, thrown my way. Games like Donut Dodo. But one of the games that I knew I absolutely had to pick up was Heroes of Loot, brought to us by OrangePixel. OrangePixel is a pretty special indie dev when it comes to the Atari VCS because he has 15 games on the console. He is one of the most active developers and supporters of the Atari VCS, and I have bought and played all of his games. I haven't enjoyed all of his games as much as I have this game. There's some that I really like, there's some that I just couldn't jive with, but OrangePixel, he has a certain quality and a certain style to his games that I enjoy. They all have this very like retro aesthetic, the cutesy looking retro aesthetic, which is very cool. And all those games I think are quality games, but Heroes of Loot kind of sits in my heart, has a special place in my heart because it is the first one that I picked up, and it's a ton of fun. Heroes of Loot feels like it takes a lot of inspiration from old school dungeon crawler games like Gauntlet, where it's more about like an arcade action than it really is like equipping items and leveling up. And there is some of that in this game. There is a level up system. There are items you can get that do different things. But it all feels kind of basic, and I think it's designed that way on purpose to make it feel more like an arcade-style game. To play the game, you really only need to use your two joysticks, one to move and one to fire. And then I think you do use another button to activate like quests and stuff. But it's a very simple setup that kind of feels like if Gauntlet was mixed with something like Smash TV in a way. Which works really well because you're fighting mobs of enemy in both, like enemies in both of those types of games. So combining the two together is a really smart idea. What I like so much about Heroes of Loot is the fact that while it is simple, it's a ton of fun and highly addictive. It's a game that, there's 30 dungeons in this first game, and he has done follow-ups to this game, and I'll maybe talk about those down the road. But there's 30 dungeons in this first Heroes of Loot game. You can play it co-op 2-player, and even though I've cleared all of the dungeons before, and I've unlocked the extra character you can get and everything else, even like recording footage for this review, I found myself playing for way too long. Because I was just having so much fun. And, that's just the sign of a great arcade-style game. Whatever, I don't even... Most of the time when I'm, recording gameplay footage, I'll, keep an eye on my clock to see, okay, do I have enough footage now? Am I good? This I accidentally played for like an hour, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I don't even need all of this footage." But that's just the way it works when it comes to great arcade style games, and that's why I honestly think if you're thinking about picking up a VCS or you have one, this is definitely a must-have game. Again, it's great for co-op, a lot of fun. And it's a great just kind of game to shut off your brain and have fun playing. You can also support OrangePixel. I have bought some of his games that aren't on the VCS. I've bought over on GOG. I believe they're there, and other platforms. I don't know, Steam or whatever. I know he releases his games on PC and probably some other things like Switch. But I've only bought a few of them on GOG, some of the games that he hasn't brought to the Atari VCS yet. And I hope he does. I really enjoy OrangePixel and the stuff he creates, even if not every game that he releases gels with me like this one does. I always like checking out what he releases, and it's thanks to the Atari VCS and its focus on smaller games and indie games that I even know about this developer. That's one of the cool things about the Atari VCS. Currently, the store on the Atari VCS, the library, it only has like 251 games, which means that whenever an indie developer releases a game for the platform, I notice it, and people that own the VCS notice those games because there's not much else happening on the VCS. Not saying that in a bad way, but saying that it's a chance for smaller developers to get noticed. And thanks to the Atari VCS, I became a fan of OrangePixel. And this was my first game I played by OrangePixel. So I definitely think it's a great game. If you're looking for a fun co-op style, old school dungeon crawler type game, definitely give this a try on whatever platform you want to play it on. I'm going to keep playing it here on the Atari VCS because it rules on the Atari VCS.